There is a plant that kings and emperors loved, a vegetable so special that the Roman army had teams just to find it and bring it across their lands. If you plant it one time, it can feed you and your family every spring for 20 or even 30 years. It is full of good things for your body, with vitamins and other compounds that science is only now starting to understand. For thousands of years, this plant was a key part of gardens. It was a sign of spring and a promise of food. And yet, this plant was pushed out of our modern food system, not because it was a bad plant, but because it was too good. It is a plant that is hard to control. It does not fit with today's big farms, and it breaks the business model of the giant companies that sell seeds. This is the story of a plant that you can harvest forever, and the real reason it was hidden from you. During my years studying plants, I found stories like this again and again. Stories of amazing plants, forgotten knowledge, and a food system that was changed to make money, not to help people. Today, I want to share one of those stories with you. The story of asparagus starts a long, long time ago, even before the Roman Empire. The ancient Greeks knew about it. They would find it growing wild by the sea. The famous Dr. Hippocrates, around 400 BC, did not just eat it, he used it as medicine. He suggested a tea made from its dried roots to help people who had trouble peeing, and even for toothaches. But it was the Romans who really fell in love with this plant. They did not just find it in the wild, they learned how to grow it perfectly. They turned it from a wild snack into a major crop. About 200 years before Christ, a Roman leader named Cato the Elder wrote down exactly how to grow asparagus. He was a famous soldier and politician, but he also knew a lot about farming. This was not just a simple gardening tip. It was a serious plan for growing food. The Romans knew this plant was special. They figured out how to grow huge asparagus spears. A writer named Pliny the Elder wrote that the asparagus from a town called Ravenna was so big that just 3 spears weighed more than 300 grams. The first Roman emperor, Augustus, loved asparagus so much that he sent out teams to find the best kinds. A common saying in Rome was, "quicker than you can cook asparagus," which meant doing something very fast. This shows how important the vegetable was in their daily lives. Archaeologists have even found old bronze knife handles shaped like asparagus spears in Germany and the Netherlands. These were not cheap tools. They were well made and likely owned by rich people who wanted to show off their love for this special food. This was more than just food. It was part of their culture. It was a sign of being fancy and a source of great nutrition that they cared about so much. When the Roman Empire fell, the knowledge of how to grow asparagus was lost in many parts of Europe. But it did not disappear completely. It survived in the gardens of monasteries and the homes of rich nobles. Later, during the Renaissance, it became a royal food again. King Henry VIII of England grew it in his gardens. King Louis XIV of France, known as the Sun King, loved it so much that he had special greenhouses built at his palace in Versailles, just to have fresh asparagus all year. For hundreds of years, this plant was a treasure. It was a sign of wealth and a source of amazing health benefits. So what did they know that we have forgotten? First, the health benefits of asparagus are truly amazing. The vegetable is mostly water, but it is also one of the most nutrient-packed foods you can eat. Just 1 cup of cooked asparagus gives you more than half of the vitamin K you need for a day. Vitamin K is important for helping your blood clot and for building strong bones. Asparagus is also full of folate, which is a B vitamin. Folate is very important for growing new cells and is why it has been suggested for pregnant women for a long time. It is also a good source of vitamins A, C, and E, and minerals like iron and copper. But the real magic of asparagus is in the special things it contains that science is just now starting to understand. It is one of the best plant sources of a compound called glutathione. Glutathione is often called the master antioxidant. Your body makes it, but you have less of it as you get older or if you are sick or stressed. Glutathione helps clean your body, fights off harmful particles, and keeps your immune system strong. Studies show that having enough glutathione can lower your risk of getting serious diseases. Most foods do not have much of it, but asparagus is loaded with it. Asparagus is also full of a special kind of fiber called inulin. Inulin is a prebiotic. This means it travels through your body without being digested until it gets to your gut. There, it becomes food for the good bacteria that live inside you. A healthy gut is linked to everything from better digestion and a stronger immune system to better mental health. The inulin in asparagus helps these good bacteria grow, making you healthier from the inside out. Asparagus also has compounds that fight inflammation. We now know that long-term inflammation is a root cause of almost every major modern illness, like heart disease, diabetes, and cancer. The compounds in asparagus help calm this inflammation down inside your body. The Romans did not know the words for glutathione or inulin, but they saw the results. They saw a food that made them feel strong and kept them healthy, and they loved it for that reason. But the most amazing thing about asparagus is not just that it is healthy. It is how it grows. It is a perennial. This is the secret that has been hidden from us. Today, we are used to farming that follows a yearly cycle. You plow the field, plant seeds, harvest the crop, and then start all over again the next year. This is how big farms work. This system needs constant work. And most importantly, for the big companies, it means you have to buy new seeds every single year. Asparagus breaks this system. You do not plant asparagus seeds every year. You plant a 1-year-old root, called a crown, just one time. You get the soil ready, dig a trench, and place the crowns in the ground. For the first 2 years, you have to be patient. You let the plant grow a deep, strong root system. You do not harvest anything during this time. This patience is the key. Because starting in the 3rd year, that one planting will give you a harvest of tasty spears every spring for the next 20 to 30 years. Some asparagus beds can even produce for longer. Think about that. One day of work can give you food for a generation. This is what real food security looks like. It is a system of having plenty, not a system of scarcity. So why did we stop growing it? Why is this miracle plant now a fancy, expensive item in the store, often shipped from far away, instead of being in every backyard and on every local farm? The answer is a story about how our food system was changed to put profits first. The pushing out of asparagus and other perennial plants was not an accident. It was a slow, deliberate change driven by the way big business works. It started when farming became about machines. In the early 1900s, tractors replaced horses. Farming became an industry, and machines need things to be the same. They work best on huge flat fields of annual crops like corn and wheat. These crops can be planted in perfect rows and harvested all at once with a big machine. Perennial plants like asparagus are the enemy of this system. Their deep roots are good for the soil, but they get in the way of plows. They grow in clumps, not neat rows. And most importantly, they cannot be harvested by a machine. Every single spear of asparagus you have ever eaten was cut by a person's hand. During its 3-month growing season, the plant has to be harvested every single day. On warm days, a spear can grow several inches in just 24 hours. This means workers might have to go through the same field twice in one day. This is a lot of work. In California, which used to be the asparagus capital of the U.S., labor costs make up more than 75% of the total cost of growing it. For a system that is all about cutting costs and using fewer workers, asparagus is a nightmare. It is just too human. This leads to the second reason it was pushed out: the global economy. As wages for farm workers went up in America and Europe, it became cheaper to grow asparagus in countries where workers were paid less, like Mexico and Peru. Trade deals made this even easier. Suddenly, farmers in California who paid their workers a fair wage had to compete with cheap imports. The result was a disaster for the local industry. In the year 2000, California had over 37,000 acres of asparagus. Today, there are fewer than 3,000. That is a drop of over 90% in just 2 decades. The fields were not abandoned because the plant was bad. They were abandoned because the economic system made it impossible for local farmers to compete. We traded local food for cheap food from far away, and we lost a piece of our farming history. But the biggest reason for the disappearance of perennial vegetables is the seed industry itself. The whole business of the giant seed companies is built on making farmers dependent. They sell farmers patented seeds that have to be bought new every single year. They also sell the chemicals that these special seeds need to grow. It is a perfect business model for them because it keeps farmers coming back to buy more, year after year. Perennials like asparagus are a threat to this model. If a farmer or a gardener plants asparagus, they buy the crowns one time. They do not need to buy them again next year, or the year after that, for decades. Asparagus means you can be self-sufficient, and being self-sufficient is the enemy of corporate profit. Over the years, seed catalogs and garden stores started offering fewer and fewer perennial plants. They were pushed to the back pages, called specialty or old-fashioned. The front pages were filled with the newest annual plants. It was a quiet campaign to make us forget that food could be permanent. We were taught to think in seasons of buying, not in generations of growing. But this knowledge was never truly lost. It was just waiting to be found again. And the good news is, you can get this power back. You can plant a crop that harvests forever. Here's how. You start by finding 1-year-old asparagus crowns from a good nursery. Do not try to grow it from the hard end of a spear you bought at the store. The life is in the crown. Look for types like Jersey Giant or Mary Washington. In the early spring, you dig a trench about 6 to 8 inches deep. You make a little ridge of soil down the middle and place the crowns on top, spreading their roots out. You space them about 1.5 feet apart. Then, you cover them with a couple of inches of soil. As the first little shoots start to grow, you slowly add more soil to the trench over the summer. This helps the plant build a deep, strong root system. For the first 2 years, you have to resist the urge to harvest. Let the plant grow. Let the ferny leaves soak up the sun and send energy down to the roots. This is your investment in the future. Then, in the 3rd spring, the magic happens. For about 6 to 8 weeks, you can harvest every spear that is about as thick as a pencil. You just snap it off at the ground. After the harvest, you let the rest of the spears grow tall and ferny. This powers the roots for next year's crop. That is it. One planting. A lifetime of food. A food that is not only delicious, but is also like medicine. A food that builds up the soil instead of wearing it out. A food that connects you to a long line of growers, all the way back to the Romans. Let me ask you something. Have you ever tried to grow asparagus? Or did you think it was too hard? Have you ever tasted it fresh from the garden, just minutes after picking it? The taste is completely different from what you buy in the store. It is sweeter, more tender, and full of flavor. Once you taste it fresh, you will never want to go back to store-bought again. Let me know in the comments. I would love to hear your stories and answer any questions you might have. There is one more thing. Asparagus is not just good for you. It is good for the earth. Annual crops require the soil to be plowed every year, which disturbs it. But asparagus helps build the soil. Its deep roots break up hard soil, letting in air and water. When the ferns die in the fall, they add nutrients back to the ground. Over time, an asparagus bed gets healthier and more fertile. It is a regenerative plant. It gives back more than it takes. This is the opposite of big-scale farming, which often drains the soil of its nutrients. We have been taught that our modern food system is the only way, that we need the giant global supply chain. But plants like asparagus show us a different way. They remind us that nature is about abundance and strength. They offer us a way to have more control over our own food. The reason this plant was hidden is because it is too powerful. It cannot be easily patented or controlled by big companies. It is a plant for the people. It is a crop that teaches patience and rewards care. It offers freedom. The freedom from having to buy seeds and plow fields every year. The freedom of knowing that no matter what, every spring, food will come up from the ground in your own yard. That is a power they can never take away from you. The asparagus plant is living proof that our ancestors were not simple or backward. They understood something deep about food and nature that we have been made to forget. They knew that real wealth is not about money. Real wealth is the food that grows from your own soil year after year without needing anyone's permission. I want to tell you about something I saw with my own eyes. Years ago, I visited an old farm in the countryside. The farmer was in his 70s. He showed me an asparagus bed that his grandfather had planted. 3 generations of his family had eaten from that same patch of ground. The spears were thick and healthy, coming up every spring like clockwork. He told me that his grandfather planted those crowns in the 1940s. That is over 80 years of food from one single planting. When I saw that, I knew that this was a kind of wealth that no bank account could ever match. This is what real food security looks like. Not a freezer full of processed food. Not a pantry stocked with cans. But living plants in the ground that will feed your family for decades. Plants that get stronger over time, not weaker. Plants that do not need a corporation's permission to grow. I think about the world my grandchildren will grow up in. A world where food prices keep going up. A world where supply chains can break down overnight. A world where knowing how to grow your own food might be the most valuable skill you can have. And I think about how simple it would be to give them a gift that keeps giving. A few asparagus crowns planted today could still be feeding them when they are old. This is not just about one vegetable. Asparagus is a symbol. It represents a whole way of thinking about food that we have lost. A way of thinking that is about the long term, not just the next season. A way of thinking that is about building something that lasts, not just making a quick profit. Our great-grandparents understood this. They planted fruit trees they might never see, fully grown. They built soil that would feed future generations. Somewhere along the way, we forgot all of that. But we can remember. We can choose to plant things that last. We can choose to step off the treadmill of buying seeds every year. We can choose to build something real, something that will outlive us. And it can start with something as simple as a few asparagus crowns in a trench. If this story planted a seed of curiosity in you, I encourage you to share this knowledge. The more of us who remember, the harder it is for this wisdom to be lost again.